So I want to do some art practice together. This is going to be one of the last videos I do of these kind of like ongoings readings and from books and arts. I'm going to be returning to my series. I have 7 journals. I call them journals. They're research manuals. They're mixtures of many different things. They're going to eventually, God willing, if I'm alive and well, and I have the fortitude and the strength for the sake of the world, I'll put them into books. I'm working on my first book. This is my laptop. It's less than $200, and my first batch, what turned into journals eventually. In the beginning was materials like this. This is the last set of things I've written as inspired, and perhaps I should return to this, but I used to bring like a few papers. I used to be very active and about more. I guess I still am. It's hard to tell. Anyway, I transitioned from all this, like maybe this was more to appeal to me to write in the beginning, But I have a whole big bag of all of these, and it's over 140 pages I've managed to type up of this. It's a prompt workbook, and I'm not expecting anybody to take it too seriously, but it's just supposed to subtly, like really, over the course of someone doing this, for themselves on a daily basis, there will be tremendous potential desired outcome. And then pretty much power to use for whatever you want. But you can get this power if you do these prompts every day. You get extra power because when we misrepresent ourselves, blah, blah, blah. I'm not trying to sell my book. I may not even be able to charge money for it. I'm not really sure what's going to happen. But I meant sell, like prove its worth. But my point is really that reflecting gives us back energy, because when we reflect, we shine our light on, and then it can sometimes give us back much more. So I guess I've sort of spiritual surgery found maybe a lot of areas to really bring light to, and then those areas give us a lot of energy. And I just, from reflecting on what our society really encourages and what's available to us, and yeah, so point is that while I do love doing these practice videos, I still hopefully will, like once in a while, maybe a meditation or I love those. Like maybe today will be the last day of I'll do a meditation video, an art video, because I didn't record a video yesterday. There was a lot going on. I was working dog sitting for the weekend, and the dog had an issue, and then my guest was very draining for me, and required a lot of my energy, so a lot of my commitments I couldn't do, and then there were some things that just had to be done that were not expected. So I'll record 2 videos today, one for yesterday, one for today, one art and one meditation. And I will also just be saying that now we're going to transition to like back to the journals. I will have, I'll start from book 1, and I'll be sharing these materials. And it's beautifully written, beautifully organized. I took it very seriously. And I think it'll translate, and I had a lot of good teachers here. All right, so we'll be doing art now. And the practice for this is just something called witnessing. In witnessing, we're not looking for value. We're not coming from a place of need. We don't expect to walk away with anything. We're here just to like observe. And we could throw this art away after, for some reason, we find it offensive, but the point is not what it's going to look like. The point is the process of making art. And same with like singing and dancing. It's very possible that we don't become accomplished singers or dancers from our time that we put into it. When I say accomplished, I mean fancy moves, competitions, performances, traveling, partner dance, style dance. Doesn't mean that. Choreography, tricks. What it means is the process of moving the body, of the sound waves, which are also movement, and now with the eye, the hand-eye coordination. I mean, the old wives' tales, usually the cliches actually match something in reality. And in this case, they say, busy hands keeps the heart from depression or from heaviness. And what they're really saying is that when you keep busy, your mind can process new information, you stay growing, you have to come up with new solutions, you forget who you were, you can become someone new a little, you get exposed often in group activities to new people. And the whole point of changing is that we can be ourselves more, and sometimes we just need a break from the version of ourselves we thought we were in order to show up more authentically. And of course, we can always find meaning. We can listen to songs that we are connected to and dance to music that and do movements that feel connecting. And our art, the fact that we can make a change in the world that we can see in front of us. And if you really, really struggle with art that could be done, using traditional materials, it's fine to do electronic art, knowing that it's a different experience in the brain. And it's fine to do cooking as well, or food art, or clay art. And there's no right art. There's books written on what is art. And nobody has the right answer for everyone. So the good news is that as long as you deem the process art, you're making art. So whatever you're doing at the time of creating now is for the sake of the space and the filler. And that's the relationship we have in life, as a guidance for all of us. Are we the space for life to move in? Or are we the filler and life is the space and we are what happens inside of life? And of course there's more dimensions because we're in relationships, there's other. Are we the space for the other and life is moving through both of us? And now we could have a giver and receiver. So not only is life moving through me, but maybe the other one is the space for me and I'm giving them of myself, or maybe it's the other way. And then we can call this so there's the persona, then there's the animus and the anima, which is what I was just describing as the in and the out. And then of course there's also the shadow, who do I need to be in someone else just to be who I am? So for example, what are some projections I had recently? One was that someone was being avoidant of answering a question. I thought, the underlying issue is that they have an image they're trying to maintain. That very well could have been me. Why was it threatening for me that someone didn't want to, acknowledge their bitterness? Is it because I don't want to be a bitter person? And the truth is I don't want to be a bitter person. Maybe I am feeling a little bit bitter. So that's why it bothers me when someone's bitter, because it's really my own bitterness that's bothering me. That's sort of when we don't or when I don't want to care about people and I'm feeling oh, my friend, she gets engaged, she gets married, and I'm not invited. I'm invited to the wedding kind of as an afterthought right before, days before, just a few days before, only because I saw her in the street, I believe. And no, I think I saw her after. Regardless, it just felt kind of this is a friend who years ago I put so much time and energy and sacrifices. And I feel like people just forget, And that's okay, but it just shows me I do want to be more selfish. I don't want to have given her so much and then she doesn't even think of me. And I think of how much I raised her up when her family and, her siblings and others were not there. And now she's the one that they wanted her to be more, getting married, looking like this or that, and becoming more religious or Jewish, and then now it's I don't matter. So I recognize how much of that is in people. And I'm also thinking about transference, Part of the shadow work is also we carry around this version of somebody who disappointed us, but we still want them to love us. That could be initially our parents. So it's someone who we think is strict and negative, but yet we're still trying to impress them, get their approval. And we would say people often, we call them narcissists when they're like that, but actually all of us have to some extent. We might be carrying a shadow when we've been abused, or when people have shown us that when we're willing to lower ourselves to please them, they're gonna hold it over us and not give us that sort of that satisfaction, like, and that's what, when we're in fight or flight, we become more narcissistic. So there's the connection there that, like, if we don't trust people to give us what we want, we would rather manipulate, because we tried to trust them and it didn't work. We got hurt. So then the narcissist can't even talk to people about it, because each one they'll trust is just going to let them down. And that's what creates selfish people who get stuck in that their reality is real, because when they listen to others, it really hurt them. What they thought was real with others, it turns out was only real for them. And so we're all healing that now, but I feel like it's more in the men, and it's in some women who also do denial. And I mean, I was just reading online about a man's, when he's grieving, at first there's a lot of coping feelings that cover it up, like anger and or frustration. And these come out maybe as more moodiness in some other areas, or irritability, but definitely they don't look like typical grief or sadness, or comprehending a loss. So it could be said that it's important to acknowledge that a man could only start grieving a month after, in waves. The waves that hit a woman right away could hit a man much later on. And by that point, it's almost too late for them to really reach out with the desperation that they really feel. And that's why we have to trust the bigger patterns of life, that in a larger scale of time, it's all going to work out. And perhaps the very areas we pride ourselves in is not the areas that we are best at. And actually, we might be worse. Like, I remember hearing someone talking about how patient he is, sitting back and watching life. But my perception of him was that he's constantly checking his watch, constantly checking the time, the window, not the time, the clock. He's also constantly checking the window, and always worried about drinking, going to the bathroom. Like, even mild discomfort for him is very, very painful. I can't imagine that he's just sitting and watching and waiting life. Like, you need to be able to handle a lot of discomfort, and not constantly like monitoring a little baby who can't handle even a few seconds of pain. He has like a inner child it seems in pain, constantly needs to be taken care of. So, the very thing he thinks he's so good at, actually, he's not integrating that he's not. And you have to imagine that he has to be around people who are not going to give him that feedback. And what kind of people is that? Users. Who's going to ignore someone's faults and pretend that and give them fake love, unless they also are needing fake love? And what does that look like? A user, an objectifier, someone who's like, I'm okay with us exchanging, just certain things, but it doesn't fulfill that inner being's needs. It just doesn't. It doesn't fulfill us to not have our real self loved. The good and the bad, the ugly and the beautiful, the positive and the negative. And so we practice that. Like, we practice that in others, even if it's people we really don't like, or people who hurt us, or people we didn't understand their actions, seem to make no sense. We're starting to love our own shadow too, through these practices. Of the one who's slow, the one who's afraid. Rather than maybe a weakness seeking And then people who are weak, preying on the weak, right? Versus building up the weak. But how do we know anything about weak? It's our own weakness. And that's why we make art, so that we can allow these topics without their charge. Like, we don't have to immediately feel the frustration or disappointment of a fake reality. At this moment, we're able to make art and allow for these patterns, which might exist or might not exist in us. Maybe there's things there we don't want there. Maybe there's, not things there that we want there. Just that process of, hey, maybe we misrepresent ourselves. And, paying attention to what fulfills us when we're zooming in at our art and allowing our thoughts to reflect, we start to see that maybe where are we in line with what we really get energy from. I could give an example, wanting to bring light, others to their light, not being the light, but wanting everyone to be their own light. So maybe, for example, not me being the light, I don't need the role of the light, but I do enjoy and feel fulfilled by others being the light. And you could say, well, is it because I want them to share their light with me? I don't want to be the one to always share the light. Could it be that I'll feel less responsibility if I know that others are doing what I'm doing too, and then I won't have to do as much of it? So it could be that my desire got all mixed up, and the real desire I have is to be in light, to be in the light, right? And then I kind of turned it into, I have to bring everyone to the light and of their self. And so we could see how sometimes we just have to take steps into ourselves and see what's our real alignment. And maybe me focusing on being in the light is more important than me focusing on bringing others to their light, to the light. And to not care about others could sound scary, because don't we need others to care about us to survive? And that's the first step out of any codependent thinking, because when we acknowledge that there's interdependence, we now have healthy background references. Like, this is about survival, not about popularity, about false image. Like, okay, to survive, if I have to, I'll reach out to people, right? But if I'm just talking about caring about on a daily basis, it's definitely fine and necessary to care for one's own environmental light. And to one person that might look like going out for a walk early in this, whether the sun is physically out or not, but to see the sky and feel the space and maybe fresh air or whatever that means, like deep breaths or seeing nature. A lot of things that connect us to what we think of how the sun represents life and growth. And what that means on the inside is also considering whether we obsess about our impressions on others, which is very external, and even we're manipulating with pretend, in terms of worrying about our appearances and cues, and that's also a sense of maintenance, and we can have a lot of energy freed up when we don't have to deny an aspect. So, in other words, if we're creating circuitry with a version of ourselves that doesn't exist, but we keep feeding it, we have to keep feeding it in order to work with it. But if we just stop feeding it, the energy that we're feeding it is usable somewhere else. But then we have to make sure we have the right place. Otherwise, we're potentially very vulnerable to users, objectifiers, who are looking for free energy to get away with taking and not having to be generous. Now, is that a belief that's true? I don't know. Have you encountered that people will take whatever you're willing to give? And people are happy to get anything for free. And that it's not so common always that people are looking to give and help and serve right away. It's special people, it seems, not always. And in terms of getting approval, in other words, if we are performing or presenting there's some sense of knowing or wanting already. We want to be loved for that version, or that's the version we know. And so now it's all starting to come together. I hope that in not knowing, we can maybe not want so hard, because maybe if we wanted it at one point, we wanted others to be bright and light, but we can be in the light. It's indirectly going to make us happy if others also do that, but that's not the goal. The goal is to maintain being in the light. And if helping, it doesn't matter who. We don't have to help everyone. Some people, when we help them, they'll just take whatever's available, as we mentioned. So we have to protect and reassure ourselves by treating ourselves in what's precious as precious. Available energy is like being spiritual. That's what it is. Having energy to share is being spiritual, because you're making the connection between something out of nothing, something from nothing. So we're feeding something and it gives us more than, so looking at it like that, we can become more generous and more respectful people, because it doesn't matter who we're doing it for, our integrity is ours to keep. Regardless if others actually are grateful for us, appreciate us, understand or reflect us, or brighten themselves to make our time worthwhile, or thank us, or, not getting any credit or honor. And then also trusting the Creator is not gonna allow it to continue that people sort of take advantage of what's available just because it's available. Soon they'll realize it's taken from their own self. And each one will see that how we treat others is a part of us always watching and paying attention and being an accountant about it. And we know the rules. And so that's when guilt starts to happen, and shame. And that's when people start to have to run from the truth, can't slow down. And that's why someone may not be able to reflect, because they're trying to get something for free. So just doing this, like I said, just making art and letting thoughts go in a healthy direction, expanding, and, we're actually doing what allows us to stop judging as much, or being okay with not knowing if it's good or bad, or pleasurable or painful yet. And starting from there, like for a moment, just starting from that, starting from letting go of some fear. And that's how we know, each one individually, that we're not the creator as the source. In the fact that we can be suspended like the moon in the sky is, without wanting or knowing even for a second, and yet there's still knowledge, there's still desire, and it's already existing. And then we could receive a new desire. We don't have to hold on to our desires and our knowledge so tightly. And trusting that there's a right desire, a right knowledge. And then how do we even get dopamine? Like I talked about earlier, the serotonin, the dopamine that was referred to by ancient, like, not wisdom, like natural medicine. They said, keep your hands busy and you won't have time to think about bad things. How does it make sense? You still have the same time as when you're doing nothing or playing on a phone. But the real answer here is that your mind will be used in a different way. And so it's healing your mind and it's clearing up any unfinished business. It's a chance to be a whole with a lot of parts and to decompress from any aspect that we're squishing ourselves into or that's overriding the whole network system. And so there's a source that we can realign with, for example, by doing a creative activity and by practicing not being a judge instead of let's say the lordship of his creations, or shouldn't the artist be the best judge of their art? But maybe not necessarily. That's why there's a collective. So it's like we tap into these general agreements. For example, God is good. But in this scenario, we're saying God created everything as the source. So what do we know is good? We could say, no, God also created bad, but maybe we don't know a higher level of good and bad. And so it's kind of a catch-22 when someone says, no, stop saying anything's wrong, just have faith. But how can you do that if you don't admit that you don't have faith? You have to always have faith. So, and what is faith if not trust? But no, that's not the same thing, and neither is hope. So there's a certainty here that comes about from something like making art. So even a few minutes every day of making some art as a daily practice, even like I told you, if it's just, even if you do something at work and you can turn one of your projects into a creative project, the very act of channeling creative energy is what increases benevolence, lessens ambiguity, knits everything together, lessens judgment, and connects us with the source, whether it's the source of any positive feeling we want or any negative outcome we want for someone else because we've been hurt. There stops being as much of a separation. And that's how we can, that's really how we can navigate in an ever-changing world. Something like art where it's changing and it may change into something we don't like. Maybe we have really specific agendas about the outcome. And as we watch things manifest, as I described, we start to yield what we think we know and want and what's good in the world to what actually is. And we start to recognize what actually is could be the highest good. Without even it needing to be good with bad. A pure good. And we start to see challenges as without as much to lose. Like, okay, so we fail or not, what does that even mean? We don't even want to win as much. Sometimes we might see ourselves as the peacemaker, then that means we don't always need to be the right one. In fact, we might even welcome moments where we could be wrong, because then there could be more peace. So what we thought we want can actually shift. And it still could be in line with our original intentions that we sort of got married to at some point. And sometimes when we want the desired outcome in our project, we may have to go about it a different way than either the instructions or the regular way. Something changes. And that's kind of in life, to be creative, to be an improviser, to be an adapter, to even be willing to be willing to give up the controlling way that we know already, which is the familiar, and we already have mastered it, and we're welcoming it always as the way. And starting to recognize these challenges with a sense of confidence that we can handle it, and enjoying figuring it out.